What made you realize there was something off about your friend's significant other? Story 1. Me and my cousin grew up together like brothers. I immediately knew his new girlfriend didn't like me from the looks she would give me or how blunt she was when I tried to engage her in conversation. A few months down the line, I tried to arrange a meal with my cousin and asked him to bring his girlfriend along so we could break the ice. Everything was arranged. I showed up at the restaurant and they didn't. I was stood up. They're now married and have 2 kids. I wasn't invited to his stag night or his wedding. I was, and still am, gutted. I met my wife and invited him to my stag do. He was all paid up, and I couldn't wait to see him again. It was the thing I was looking forward to the most. He didn't show. Again, gutted. He and his wife showed up to my wedding and acted as if there was no problem. It was quite strange. But I didn't care, as it was great to just spend time with the man I had considered my brother. We kind of kept in contact via text, but never met up, even though I tried to arrange it a few times. Then my son was born. I was desperate for them to meet each other, and bent over backwards to meet up. I agreed to meet at a play area so his daughters could tag along and go play, and he got to meet my son, who is named after his brother who passed away. I sat there for an hour before he messaged me to say he wasn't coming. As a final attempt to salvage some kind of relationship, I invited his family to my son's christening. I got a message an hour after it, and I had already finished, and he said that he wasn't going to make it, as his wife had arranged to do something. That was 4 years ago, and I haven't heard, seen, or spoken to him since. Still makes me sad, but as long as he's happy, then that's all that matters. This is actually really heartbreaking. I feel for you, man. You deserved better, but I'm glad it seems you're trying to keep a positive view of it. Story 2. She was super friendly, but I'd catch her looking at me out of the corner of my eye with not a nasty expression exactly, but not a friendly one either. Sort of wary. I'm also a girl. She'd also casually say odd little details when talking about her life that made it seem like she had a pretty skewed idea of relationships and gender roles. She went to an all-girls boarding school, and even though she was 24, she was the first of all of her friends to ever have a boyfriend. Like saying, "It's ridiculous to expect a woman to change a light bulb on her own," or making out that some things were a big deal in relationships when they're really not, as if she got all her knowledge from rom-coms. Just really tiny things that wouldn't be significant on their own. But added all together, it really set me on edge. She ended up going full-on psycho and not letting him see any of his friends or do any of the things he enjoyed for 2 whole years because she was basically jealous of every single other woman in the world, even his male friends' girlfriends. It took his brother to come round and have a good long chat for him to realize she was a control freak who was ruining his life. It was a timely escape, too, since she was starting to talk about babies. That's actually kind of sad. Sounds like she grew up super sheltered, so the only romantic advice she ever got was from movies and television. Not surprising she had a freaked-up view of relationships and what is normal. Story 3. When my best friend and his significant other started in an LDR, I didn't think much of it. But, LDR, by the way, is long-distance relationship. But when she would repeatedly make fun of him to her friends on Twitter, I brought it up. She repeatedly cheated on him and acted like they weren't serious at all. Told my friend again because he was head over heels. They finally broke up because of a fight over something unrelated to the things I brought up to my friend. Then they got back together, and my friend used the stuff I told him to make a stipulation that if she wants anything to do with him, she has to be serious. For whatever reason, she sticks with it. She started pulling him away from me gradually. Quick flashback, when his ex gave birth to his 2 sons, I dropped everything, was late to work because of one of them, and spent as much time as I could with them. When I had my daughter, I invited my best friend not once, not twice, but 3 times to meet her. He couldn't be bothered to come to the hospital, not because of work, but because he needed to be on the phone with his girlfriend. I burned that bridge so quickly. Now they're engaged with a kid of their own. He moved to Florida for her and is an alcoholic now. Good riddance to both of them. Sounds like he burned that bridge. Story 4. Was friends with this guy for a year while deployed overseas in the UK. His wife was always just plain mean to him in front of others. Like on everything. That is, calling him stupid, talking about their failing intimate life in front of him to friends, telling a real man would earn more money for the family. Let alone, she was also calling her 2-year stint in the UK her vacation from work. She also refused to stop hanging out with his male friends, who she always would stay with even overnight. After one nasty comment, she said to him in front of our boss at a retirement dinner, I said in front of him, "Dude, your wife is a witch." A week later, while he was at work and thinks she's in the States visiting her mother, he comes home to an empty home. Everything was gone, from the couch, bed, even his laptop and video games. He calls the cops, thinking he's been robbed. Turns out his future ex-wife came back with her family and movers, cleaned out the home, his savings accounts, everything, without a word. He lost his home and was forced to move into barracks. I just said to him, I'm sorry, dude, but your wife is still a witch. Story 5. When he started trying to pick fights with me in order to separate me from my cousin, we were in our mid-teens. He looked 17 or 18, very clean-cut and geeky in a boy band sort of way. You know, the sensitive one with the glasses. He was well-mannered, respectful to our moms, but he seemed predatory to me. I didn't have the best people around me growing up, so I learned to recognize potential threats early, and this guy set off all my danger bells. Just small things like watching too closely to see how people reacted to him, and the way his smile never reached his eyes. I wasn't rude, but I didn't fawn over him either. Once he realized that I wasn't charmed by him, he started avoiding me, telling her he didn't feel comfortable around me, and she'd have to see him alone. He tried bullying me anytime he saw me, while still bragging to me that he was her protector and her white knight. Found out a few months later that he was actually in his mid-20s and had a record for stalking and assaulting underage girls. Too bad we didn't know this before he gave her herpes. Good Lord. Story 6. My friend randomly made an Instagram and only followed his girlfriend, girlfriend's mother, sister, and some of her friends. Naturally, I was confused why he didn't follow his best buddy, me, so I followed him and he followed back. I asked him if he saw a picture I uploaded, and he said, "Oh yeah, I didn't make that. My girlfriend was looking at my new phone, and it had Instagram pre-downloaded, and accidentally clicked it, and it automatically made an account for me." I replied, "Oh, so it automatically knew to make an account with your name, a username with your name, a profile picture of you and her, have one post of you and her, make a cheesy bio about your girlfriend, and follow her family and best friends. Oh, and it followed me back weeks later, so it must be acting on its own, well after she accidentally pushed it once." Only thing he could say is that the internet is crazy, and you never know what type of AI technology they have out there these days. No, mate, your girlfriend is freaking crazy. Either she's given him some kind of unnatural, animalistic, great intimate time, or his self-awareness is on a cracked-out goldfish level. Story 7. Oh, where to start? The double date we went on where he corrected her on the difference between UFC and MMA, and she turned into the corner of the booth and didn't talk to anyone the rest of the night. How he wasn't allowed to hang out with me either because I was dating someone and they might have hot friends, or I was single and needed a wingman. He was 25 while she, my friend, was 15. Moved and she got mad at me. I don't remember why, I just didn't rub me the right way before we were done. The final straw for me, I decided she was an abusive shrew long before this, was when we were working for his parents' band on a riverboat concert. She got mad that we were hanging out, literally just talking on a small boat. She left the ring on the table, and I left the boat the second it docked. Unfortunately, they made up after this and have been living together for the last year, hoping it ends soon. Story 8. When he installed some kind of app on my best friend's computer so that he could control the mouse with his phone. I think this was 2 months after I met him, 6 months into their relationship. I thought that was really funky, but it's only a joke. Why do you think it's weird? About a year later, he asked her to sign into Facebook to see if Facebook was working for her. Later that day, she came over worried and asked me if he could have saved her password even if she told Chrome to not save it. We kind of bounced ideas around that. No, I don't think so. I mean, unless he put a keylogger on his computer. But that would be messed up. And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. Notable favorite, after breaking up, he also tried to pose as me on Kik so he could talk to her. He used a username that was like hers, so it was easily mistaken. The whole relationship was a crappy mess. This is such a hypocritical thing to do. If you're worried that your partner is keeping secrets from you, which is totally fine for innocuous things anyway, but you're obsessing over it to the point that you breach their trust and violate their privacy, rather than talk to them directly about your concerns, that's pretty childish. But to do it like this, by sneaking around and snooping on their stuff, now you're keeping secrets from them, in the sense that you're doing things behind their back that you know they wouldn't approve of. So you've now become the untrustworthy one in the relationship, which probably, in most cases, there was nothing suspicious going on in the first place. Story 9. When my husband and I were helping them move, he would only speak to or answer my husband. I had an idea of how to move some stuff up the stairs, and the guy just blew me off. So I told my husband to casually mention the same dang idea, and poof, it was an awesome idea. So we had to try it right then and there. This always put her down, and she would just take it. In the end, he broke up with her because he felt she wasn't thin or pretty enough for him. Then would get mad at her for trying to move on and try to sabotage every relationship she tried to have. I ended up ending the friendship because I couldn't stand listening to her complain about how he was treating her, and she would keep going back. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Story 10. My best friend started to date this girl about a year ago. She was awesome, always seemed so nice, and was very fun to be around. About 3 months into the relationship, and everything was going great. Then he asked her to move in with him. The day comes to move in, and I go over to help move the heavy stuff, and lo and behold, she shows up with a 5-year-old. When he asked who it was, she said her son. We were blown away. She never mentioned it, said anything about having a kid. Her Facebook had 0 pictures of her kid. No one mentioned her kid. It was a big cover-up, and she basically just wanted someone to support her and her kid. He noped out of that one right then and there. That kid is a super-duper freak. Story 11. She messaged me to let me know she wouldn't be on her phone until she got a new one because the one she has is busted. When I pressed a little, he had thrown it and stomped it when she complained about it dropping calls and having a crap battery. So, typical best friend, I'm like, I would make the mustard pay, blah blah. Fast forward a few hours, he's on her Facebook Messenger reading our conversation, trying to justify it to me. It gave me the willies to have him read our conversation. He has also thrown a remote through their plasma TV when he was mad. I know that he will be violent with her one day, if he hasn't already, and she's just keeping it secret. It makes me sick to my stomach. Story 12. We played Dungeons & Dragons with him, and it seemed like every week he'd say, "Rule number 1, don't touch the kids." He was a teacher. He always meant it as a joke, and it always made sense in context, but it didn't sit right with me. For one thing, no one thought it was funny the first time, so why call back to it? Also, the regularity with which he said it made it almost seem like a mantra to me. They arrested him last year for allegedly Snapchatting with an underage girl he met over the internet. In hindsight, there were a bunch of other warning signs too, but that was the one that initially weirded me out. Story 13. Well, she's 20 and he's over 10 years older. 6 months into their relationship, she tells me he won't let her touch his phone, but he gets mad if she doesn't let him touch hers. A year passes and she's never been to his place, met his family, and the only time they see each other is at work. Dude is either married or has kids. This happened to a friend of mine, and the guy ended up having a wife, 2 kids, etc. One time when she was in the car, he drove past his house and pointed it out. Except it turns out it wasn't his house at all. He just picked some random house. This is so mind-boggling to me. I have a hard time enough, as it is, just balancing my own life with my one family and all the things that entails. I can't possibly imagine how you could have 2 families, and on top of that, keep it all a secret. There already isn't enough time in the day to dedicate to the people that you care about. Splitting that in half is just cruel to them and to everyone involved. Not to mention the deceptiveness and cheating that is, of course, immoral as well. But as bad as it is, I'm just still blown away that people can actually pull this off to begin with. Story 14. He hated her spending time with me. Snide jokes about lesbian lovers and wondering about the true nature of our relationship. The day we finally met, He told me that muff munching can't compete with a good, hard donging. Then he started insisting that I was closeted and obsessed with her. My boyfriend was just a beard. Funny thing is, I was meeting this girl after 5 months. He was scary, controlling, and insecure. 4 years later, they're sadly still together. I have given up at this point. Story 15. The first time I met him was at her birthday party. He shook my hand, then proceeded to try and grind on me in front of her and her family. Then when I called him out on it, everyone said I was the problem, and was just jealous. A year later, it turns out he had been cheating on her continuously and had gotten 2 girls pregnant while dating her. That is tacky as frick, but tackier that the whole family was fine with it. Story 16. Whenever she would be having fun, he would pull her to the side and lecture her about how she looked stupid. For dancing, for laughing too loud, crap like that. Spoiler, 6 years later and the divorce is finally underway. Friend of mine was always also embarrassed over her boyfriend, who was just having fun with his friends. It was always really awkward when she whispered to him, "Stop doing that," and acted as if no one could hear her. Story 17. He called her because the baby woke up, and the baby is her responsibility. He went off about how she wanted the baby, so it's not fair that he has to wake up and change a diaper. It was her first night out in months, and he wanted her to come home to change a diaper. She hung up on him. And this, my friends, is why you don't have kids with someone who doesn't want them. Story 18. He was cuddling with her when we met, and refused to even take his hands off her for 1 second to shake my hand when I offered it. He just looked at my hand and held her in closer. She thought it was sweet. I thought it was rude. Turns out he didn't much care for a woman who he couldn't hold in, and he found many such women in the course of the marriage. Story 19. We'd invite the 2 of them for dinner, and he'd repeatedly tell my significant other and me that the 4 of us should play a do-it-to-the-end game of strip poker. He put emphasis on the word poker. Sounds like you missed out on a fun night of him trying to plow your significant other. Story 20. He is genuinely concerned that I'm going to turn his girlfriend gay. He goes on and on about it, well beyond a joke, and she just rolls her eyes. No idea what it's based on, but he's obsessed. The dude thinks you're crazy hot, probably hotter than his girlfriend. Story 21. First time I met him, he told me he had the biggest crush on her for 2 years before they started dating. But he was waiting for her to lose her virginity and turn 16. He was 33. And that was the day I began to throw up. Story 22. The second time we met, she cornered me in the bathroom and threatened to cut me if I spoke to her boyfriend again. Yeah, something seems a bit off about that. Story 23. He made her stop being a vegetarian. He would slip meat into her food or outright force her to eat chicken nuggets. I'm a devout meat eater and I disapprove. Story 24. When my friend told me in great detail about her new boyfriend's work with the CIA, time travel, and other secret projects, I expressed some skepticism, but she told me I was just jealous of her great catch. Story 25. The minute she happily told me that he thought her bipolar disorder was hot. Story 26. He was 25 while she, my friend, was 15. Didn't rub me the right way. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.